Welcome, 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 Senior Pastor Kimberly Heath to Talking Shit with Dr. Jackie. I want to do something a little bit different than I normally do because usually I pass it over to you and then you explain who you are and all that kind of stuff. But I want to take the opportunity to gush a little bit about you before you get a chance to introduce yourself. Because you are one of the people I most admire in this community, in my community. I'm claiming it as my own. And I just appreciate the work that you do in the community and how community minded it is, how open-hearted it is, and just how beautifully you walk organized religion as a real helpful part of community life. So that is what I want to say to you in order to just let you know my appreciation and admiration of you.
Well, thank you, Jackie. You and I are in a mutual admiration society. I really appreciate your authenticity and your willingness to lead from a position of courage and vulnerability. And you make a tremendous difference in our community in different ways for me, right? I mean, thank God for diversity. And I love, your platform and all that you do out there for all sorts of people. So definitely a mutual admiration society.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I'm going to start every episode like that, just so I can also, feed my ego. So
daily affirmations.
Yeah. I didn't expect that. I really love it. Thank you. But I would love for you to tell me a little bit about you and what you do and who you are and how you sort of inhabit your role.
Sure. Well, I guess a few things. I'm a mother of four. I've got 4 kids who are mostly getting a little bit older, 20, geez, I don't know anymore, 22, 21, 15, and 11 kids. And 3 of them at the moment are away for the summer. So that's kind of strange to just be in a house with one child. She's like sucking up the only child life right now. Yeah, so, I've got a big dog, standard poodle named Rupert. And in my career and life calling, I am a clergy. I'm a minister with the United Church of Canada and at a church called Wall Street, which is kind of funny, but it's on Wall Street. So that's where I've been a minister for the last 14 years. I've been ordained for 21 years. It's a privilege to be, when you're a minister. Wow, there's a whole lot that goes into the job. Those memes where it's like what my mom thinks I do, what I thought I would do, what I actually do. And it's like a desk full of paperwork. So, the job has a whole lot of administration to it and organizing volunteers and stuff. But it's a huge privilege to be allowed into some of the most sacred, intimate times of people's lives. People, giving birth and wanting that baby blessed, people getting married, people who are experiencing grief or sickness, and to be allowed to be invited into that hospital room, even for, a couple of weeks ago, I was invited in as someone was using the medical assisted dying process. And so I was able to be there to, offer prayers of transition from life through death and into eternal life. So, we're the man's son was there, but he didn't want anybody else there besides me. And it wasn't because of me, Kim, it was because of me representing a faith that he held dear, and needing that to be reminded of that love, that rock solid foundation of grace and love. So it's a pretty awesome job. I mean, it has its every job has its how much longer do I have to do this kind of but on the whole, it's a pretty awesome job. And I'm in the middle of doing a doctorate right now, a doctorate in preaching. And it's technically it's in Chicago, though, because of the pandemic, it's been in Zoomlandia, which is, both a blessing and a curse. It's, without Zoomlandia, I wouldn't be in school, but, it sucks that I didn't get to go to Chicago for last year or this year. Chicago's a pretty amazing city. Anyway, next year.
Yeah, I'll come with you when you need to go. So just let me know, and I'm there. I really appreciate, and I was like tearing up at you talking about that transition, and and how you facilitate that. That's so beautiful. And I similarly have that experience in terms of being allowed into people's lives, right? Being allowed into their most intimate sort of thoughts and feelings and things like that. So I can really relate to what you're saying there. I also just wanted to say the little anecdote that you baptized our daughter. And I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but she was like all over the place, like during the, I can't remember how old she was, maybe 6 months or something like that. And you, you blessed her as a very adventurous soul, and you couldn't have nailed it like better. Yeah, it was like from your lips to God's ears kind of thing,
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So I really appreciate that. But I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about what it is you're focusing on for your doctorate, and how that's unfolding.
Sure. Yeah. So transformation is kind of the key of what I'm focusing on. The title of the dissertation so far, the working title, is Aware, Repair, Renew, Preaching Transformation in a Mainline Church. And part of the reason that I went with this it's meant to be contextual, so it has to speak to my current congregational context. And at our church, we have a strong, we kind of almost have two congregations. Yeah, we've got the morning service that is more or less traditional. I mean, arguably it's a little more different. It's a little different from your typical service, but more or less like it's basically recognizable. There's a little bit of organ played, a little bit of band music, sermon preached. But we also have an evening service that focuses on people in recovery from drugs and alcohol, or we just say people with hurts, habits, and hangups. And that service is like completely different. In non-pandemic times, we hang out around tables and drink coffee and get goodies from our local bakery, who gives us kind of like what's left at the end of the week, the Saturday stock that, instead of throwing it out, they give it to us. And we get to enjoy, these little treats sitting at table while someone offers a message that is like a testimony, that just sharing from some of the pain in their life and how God or the church or their higher power kind of helped them through a difficult time. And there's a time of God sightings where people just get to say where they experienced spirit in the last week, where they experienced God's presence. But it's a very casual service. And as I say, a lot of the people, 50% maybe, are actively in recovery in a program of Alcoholics Anonymous, or one of the, Overeaters Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous type of programs. And what I'm sort of exploring is, how can this community help the rest of the community, and maybe specifically, how can it help my preaching to help the rest of the community? But one of the blessings of people who are in recovery is that they know they are on a journey of transformation. They know that they need to change. They've hit that period of that awakening moment of realizing, if I don't change, I'm going to die, or my relationship is going to die, or my job is going to die, or whatever. But basically, there's dead end if change doesn't happen. And that's, I mean, they often talk about it as a rock bottom, but they've had an awakening, a moment of aha, I need to change. And that is such, I mean, it sucks to be an alcoholic, but what a blessing to know, to be aware of the transformation that you need to take. And I just look at other people who, and I think, we all need that. We all need to change. We all need stuff in our lives that needs healing, that needs repairing, that needs, we can all be better. And I don't mean better for the sake of, better haircut, better personality. I mean, like more authentically you, obviously as a minister, I swim in a language of faith. So, more the person that we were created to be. And life throws all sorts of crap at us. And adds, gives us walls and gives us, traumas that we are recovering from. And then there's just kind of like all these layers on us that really don't belong to us, or yeah, some of them don't, right? Like I'm not saying that, some of the stuff that life throws at us is us. But how can we be more authentically ourselves within this? So aware is huge, a willingness to repair, a willingness to kind of at that point to make that decision that I want to be more me. I want to be more the person I'm called and created to be. I want to be a better person. And then renew is that kind of daily commitment to living that way, a daily commitment to being a transforming person, a person who is, and you can see this on a personal level, but it also is on a societal level. My belief is that people who are aware of and on a journey of transformation in themselves are also likely to be the people who are more able and willing to see the transformation that has to happen in institutions, in communities, in countries, in the world, and are willing to embark on that kind of repair and renew. I mean, I can chat on and on, but I look at like the in I don't know if your viewership is all Canadian or not, probably not, but in Canada we have had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission with Indigenous people, and that comes out of South Africa. It comes out of Archbishop Desmond Tutu was tasked in South Africa because of apartheid, in order to kind of heal that mess. He was asked to form this Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And he had basically, it's a very simple process. There are 4 stages on this path of forgiveness. The first one, you can't see my finger, but the first one is to tell your story. The story of the pain that you've received, the story of the trauma you've had in childhood, the story of whatever, that has to come out. And whether you share it with somebody that you trust, whether you just write that story out, it has to come out. You need to tell your story. The next one, the second one, is to name the hurt. I was betrayed. I was abandoned. I felt, to name the hurt. The third one is to offer forgiveness. Sounds easy, it's not. And the fourth is to renew or release the relationship. So again, we see these patterns of aware, commitment to repair, which is where the rubber hits the road, and that's not easy. That's where it's easy to go back to, let's just, drink wine and watch the world burn kind of, denial sort of living. And then, but if you keep going on that journey, eventually you'll find that you're changed. Not that you don't have more shit to deal with, but you're different than who you were over here, and more willing to kind of, do this work once again. It's almost a circle, really, like, oh, here's one more thing that I'm now aware of in myself, in the world, that I'm gonna make a journey of. And it's a lot messier than just, it's not a linear, it's not a, I was on this side of the street, crossed over, now I'm on the other side of the street. I mean, but it's, like, it's messy. It's yeah.
I
You
really appreciate what you're saying about the stages, because that's I think I mean that sort of encapsulates the kind of work I do, right? Around motherhood. It's like you need to tell the truth. You need to tell your truth. And I don't care what that truth looks like. I'm not interested in judging that truth, but I want to hear your truth of motherhood, because there is a expected narrative around motherhood, and that was not my experience, and so I can only assume that it was not the experience of every other woman, right, who feels as though that they have to stick to this narrative, and then coming to terms with the fact that a lot of us feel duped going into motherhood, right, because nobody talks about it in a true way. They talk about the narrative of motherhood, right, and then being able to sort of forgive that piece, and to accept yourself and your truth and your life as it is changed, and then moving on to defining motherhood on your own terms, so I really appreciate you talking about that, because it's a really familiar framework to me, in terms of the kind of work that I do with women and mothers, and so I love that.
Yeah, that's no, it's so true, isn't it? Like, it's yeah, becoming aware, and becoming more curious about ourselves instead of judgmental about ourselves.
Mhm.
And learning to do that. So, that awareness piece doesn't have to be condemning, like, oh, I'm such a crappy mother, I'm such a, that awareness piece really needs to turn into curiosity.
Mm,
Like,
and
isn't it interesting that I don't really like toddlers?
yeah.
I do a lot better with, I'm a better mother to teenagers, not that I got that figured out, than I am to, than I was to, you know, little ones. I liked the babies, but when they became kind of like, you know, I'll bide myself, that was, a little more, yeah, I wasn't as patient a mother in that respect. But yeah, being curious, like, isn't that interesting that I'm like that? And is there something that maybe could, um, yeah, between me and the child, and is there something that I could, change in that dynamic? I mean, my parenting, it's kind of, I had 4 children, and we they're really spread out. Like, we kind of, partly it's probably related a little bit to my career, but because it's not easy to take maternity leave when you're the only minister in a church. It's hard on the congregation. So I wasn't going to do it in rapid succession, but I often say it's like we'd get them out of diapers and go, oh, but they were so cute. Should we have another? And number 4 was like, anyway, not entirely expected. Not, I was just like, oh, well, maybe not. Yup. It's like, oh, that happened a little too fast. But but anyway, but they're all like roughly like 4 years apart. So it's kind of funny, the parenting style from the first one to the last one, you know, changed so much. My oldest was saying to me, you make the 22-year-old is talking about the 11-year-old and saying, how come you make her eggs for breakfast all the time? All we had was cereal, cereal, cereal. I'm like, yeah, but I didn't know, at the time that you needed, a little more, that how bad, carbs can be such garbage. Anyway, never mind. Like, but it's just like, your parenting style just changes, right? I don't know, going easy on ourselves. I mean, I'm hard on myself too, as a, like, when you look at, motherhood, I think we're all too hard on ourselves for how we do as in parenting. I always say that my role is to raise my children to be independent and successful enough that they can pay for their own therapy, which they'll need as a result of my parenting.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
I like
Yeah.
you're talking about curiosity because I think that that is the piece, you know, the piece that we don't maybe allow ourselves to say, especially at the beginning, right? Like, oh, this is interesting. This is nothing like I expected. And this, I don't like this, and I don't like this part, or I don't like that part, or I'm not the kind of mother I thought I was going to be, because it is just an idea, right? Even till the moment the baby comes out, it's just an idea. This is how I'm going to,
Yeah.
you know, and so I appreciate you saying the, you know, the gentleness as well, because I think that it's curiosity coupled with compassion, right, that we really
Right.
really need. And I think it would be interesting from your perspective to think about compassion and to think about um how void like we are of it, you know, as women and as mothers. It's one of the primary things that I do with clients is just talk about self-compassion, right?
Mhm.
um because, you know, because I have some training in Buddhism, and how steeped that is, right? In sort of an understanding of the self, as connected to others, and deserving, right? Very deserving of our own compassion, juxtaposed with sort of more, excuse me, Western religions, which feel different when it comes to compassion, right?
Right.
There's a different kind of orientation. So I'd be interested from your perspective, like how is compassion a part of that transformational process?
Yeah, well, I think it's huge because if we don't feel safe and loved, I don't think we change. I mean, you might sort of change, but not towards that good, authentic self. I think the only way that you can embark on a journey of transformation is to feel some level of safety, some level of being held, which I think looks like love and looks like compassion. I certainly, and we all struggle with that. Forgiveness is something that I find that people, crave and need. And often, something, say, I'll be doing a counseling type session with somebody and something will come up. And it's not that I think they've done anything bad, right? But they do. And that's not even just at a head level. Often it's at a real gut level.
Mhm.
And so I will, lead them through a process of asking God for forgiveness. And then at the end of it, I'll say, do you receive God's forgiveness? And usually people are able to say, yes, I do. And then I say, and do you forgive yourself? And everybody, like, it's incredible how universal they get caught on that one. Which I find kind of interesting. They can accept that God might forgive them, but have a hard time forgiving themselves. And wow, do we ever need to forgive ourselves? That's easier said than done, but uh, yeah, we need to forgive others too. That's it's all part of it. Like, but just being able to kind of look back and say, so I mean, you I think know this, Jackie, but I've struggled with anxiety, for a lot of my life. I don't think I've been able to name it until relatively recently. It just kind of was so much a part of me. It was so much a part of the water I swam in that I wasn't even able to sort of articulate it. But I look at the effects of that on, say, being a parent or on my work. And it would be very easy. And I do sink back into that of, condemning myself for maybe how I was as a parent. But yeah, I guess being able to name that, to be able to name, I have struggled with anxiety, and regardless of where it came from, um, uh, when you name it, you're able to, that awareness piece, right? You're able to kind of like, okay, I'm gonna kind of work on that a little bit, acknowledge it. It's sort of my frenemy, It'll always likely be with me, but making it a frenemy, acknowledging it, saying, hey, I see you, there you are, all right, we're going on a journey, we're still going to do this thing, or but I think that allows for some of that compassion too, right? And I truly, like, again, I wish everybody had a sense of this, but like I'm blessed to maybe have always felt or known that I was loved, child of God. I know that I am loved. I haven't always loved myself, but I know that I am loved. And it's within that feeling of safety that I can then start looking at myself and learning to love myself. And then, lo and behold, I become a more loving person, right? And perhaps more lovable person as well to other people. I'm less wrapped up in me and my needs. Boy, because when you're filled with anxiety but not able to name it, so much of your life's energy goes into managing that. And when you're able to name it, able to kind of say, hey, here you are, friend of me, come on along, we're going on this, all of a sudden you're freed to see beyond yourself and to think of, like, for example, to me, I mean, it's like a minor little, what do you call that? A victory moment for me, that as we're having this conversation, I haven't been wrapped up the whole time thinking, oh crap, what am I going to say? What are they going to think? How do I look? Instead, I'm thinking, I hope some of this conversation is helping somebody genuinely, and I look back, and 5 years ago, there's no way. I mean, we would have had a good conversation, Jackie, but I'm telling you, internally, it would have been all about me, me, me. I would have been scared shitless before the conversation, and during the conversation, it would have been all focused on how do I look, how do I sound? Boy, that was stupid. Do you know what I mean? But I say, do you know what I mean? Like over and over. It's there's something I need to work. Anyway,
I do the same thing. So it's a cool thing. Don't worry.
But anyway, I just, sometimes you can stand in a place, and this is kind of a neat conversation to have, because it's like all of a sudden, hey, you've come a long way, baby. And to be able to celebrate that. Now, I got further to go in lots of different areas, but to be able to kind of celebrate, you've come a long way, baby, is part of a compassionate, self-loving response,
I adore that. Thank you for sharing that. I could talk to you forever, obviously, but I think we'll wrap up with your best advice for moms.
Best advice for moms. Gee, frig, I don't know. Like, one day at a time. I don't know. Just try to do one thing in a day that you'll feel good about. One thing, whether it's reading a book to a kid or taking a bath or a walk, one thing that at the end of the day you can say, oh, I'm glad I was able to do this today, whether it's a self-care moment or a genuine connection with your kid moment, just one. And if the other 99 are crap, so be it. Be proud of that one thing, one day.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for always being inspiring, for always filling my heart, and just for being you.
Thank you, Jackie. This was a lot of fun. So, and rich. So thank you for that. It's a blessing to me, and hopefully it'll be a blessing to somebody else too.
Hopefully. I know it will. Okay. Thank you so much.
Take care, Jackie. Blessings.